Hi there, everybody. My name's Kristen. I'm from the Canadian Down Syndrome Society offices out of Calgary, and I'm here to introduce you to Danielle McKinney. Danielle is with the Down Syndrome Research Foundation. She has a Bachelor of Education and is a BC certified teacher. She completed her Bachelor of Education of Elementary Education with a concentration in language arts right here at the University of Victoria. She's been with DSRF since 2011 and has supported the reading development of many children and young adults with Down syndrome. Here she is.
Thank you. Okay, it's okay. All right, hi everyone. Sorry, last minute tech question there, but we're good to go. Thanks for all being here, and I'm really hoping that you get a lot out of this presentation. And I want to say ahead of time that we are available to chat after the presentation. There's lots of things over on the table there that you might see in the videos and see in the presentation that we can talk more about and you can have a look at later on. So I'll just get started. I said it was okay. No, it's good. So Susan introduced us to a lot of the information that we will use throughout our sessions today about Down syndrome. We'll look more in depth at the learner profile as it relates to reading, and also our own model on reading instruction, which consists of high meaning sight word acquisition, reading sight words in context, and reading together, as well as some information on letter sounds and how you start to introduce that with your early readers. Okay, in Susan's presentation this morning, you're introduced to some of these characteristics. Listed here are some of the strengths and challenges that our learners with Down syndrome are likely to demonstrate during reading instruction. Try to keep these in mind as you think about the student or students you work with and how you can use their strengths and make adaptations and modifications to address their challenges. For example, you could use a strength with receptive language to address challenges with expressive language and speech intelligibility by finding ways for your student to demonstrate their understanding, or the receptive, with tools to augment the communication. Today, as we look at early reading, we'll focus on the examples in bold type. We will start by looking at how some of these challenges can affect behavior and how they can be avoided by planning learning tasks with strengths and challenges in mind. So there's some of those ones that Susan talked about, the social motivation, musical interest, gesture use, receptive language, and visual learning. So that's a big one that comes into play in our reading program, is their relative strength in visual learning. And then some of those challenges that you heard about already: attention, verbal, short-term memory, auditory processing, problem solving, abstract thinking, sequencing, and generalization, and expressive language and speech production. Oops, sorry. Okay, so some of the things that come up are the executive functioning. That's that frontal lobe piece that we talked about this morning. The ability to follow a predictable routine is really a strength for our students. So to keep things routine and predictable is a really good idea. Using a visual schedule so they know what to expect. So I always think about this. It really kind of spoke to me. Think about being stuck in traffic. You're on your way to work, you know you're late, there's a stall ahead, and you don't know how long it's going to take. Consider how frustrated you are. Are you feeling anxious? Do you want to flee the scene? Now imagine that you're tuned into the talk radio station, as us adults do, and the traffic update's on. You learn that the traffic you're stuck in is only causing a 5-minute delay. You'll get to work on time. Phew, how much different do you feel? So this is the idea of having the visual schedule available to our students so they know, oh, I don't really love this, but I know that this is coming next. I can push through it, or you can probably talk me into it because I know that there's something else coming up. Another really big piece is motivation. And we talk a lot about using interests, providing choice, working in opportunities to be social, making it fun, minimizing that frustration with errorless learning, which we'll get into more, and reducing a workload when necessary. This difficulty with language. So we know that students or learners with Down syndrome understand more than they can say, and that they have a reduced ability to process and remember things that they hear. So again, looks like non-compliance sometimes. But if we provide alternate ways to show what they know, to use visual supports to augment their communication, we can get over that hurdle and give them something where they can actually participate in the task. And then learning. So they're much stronger memory for things that they see and likely to forget instructions and lessons, and a greater need for repetition and visual support. So we want to provide varied repetition for generalization of skills and knowledge. I feel like I'm going really fast through this, but we're going to come back to all of these things, so don't worry. And use strategies they already know to teach new concepts, which will minimize the need to remember the instructions and the steps. So if they're already really familiar with a process or a procedure, an activity, and you're just giving them new information through that, they can really focus on the information. Okay, so here's just some examples of those things that I was talking about. There's some visual schedule there where it says establish a routine and use visuals. We've got an example of offering alternatives. The truck in the middle there, so we are working on letter sounds, or if you're working on letter sounds and the student is really interested in vehicles, then you might choose to have them pick up the sound you say and put it into a dump truck. That makes it more interesting and motivating than just simply having them on flashcards. Providing alternate ways to show what they know. This is what I was talking about there. So rather than reading a word and you having to understand that they're saying van, they can show you that they've read van by picking up the picture that shows what they've just read. Reducing workload. The picture there in the bottom is a picture of Ella, and she, some days, was really interested in reading all of the lyrics to her favorite song. But this day was not one of those days. So our teacher had her instead just going through the lyrics and finding her high-meaning sight words and circling those instead of having to read everything. So really understanding what your student's behavior is telling you that day, what kind of challenges they're up against, and reducing workload or changing things to account for that. In the middle there is an example of using visual support to augment communication. A lot of our learners have their own AAC device that you could use for this, but if they don't, if they just need a little bit of extra support, you can have things prepared. This is something we call a story vocabulary board, so it just has some of the key vocabulary from the book that we've read so that I can ask questions and they can make comments by using the pictures to help them out. And then that last picture is an example of using strategies they know to teach new skills. So this little guy is very familiar with practicing his sight words using the fly swatting game, which we'll see later as well. But we've also used it to teach letter sounds. So instead of focusing on, okay, let's learn a new game to learn letter sounds, we'll just use a game that we already know and really focus on what the new information is. Okay, so again, this is the behavioral phenotype of learners with Down syndrome and kind of what guided the way that we deliver our reading instruction. The deficit in working memory, so the ability to take in information, hold it there for use later, and the verbal short-term memory. The relative strength in visual processing, and the weakness in phonological processing. So what Susan was talking about, things that we see are much easier to process than the auditory information coming in. And a relative strength in receptive language and weakness in expressive language. And a difficulty with the maintenance of existing skills. So that idea of generalizing the skills they've learned and maintaining those skills going forward. So the thing that we use to, or we really think about when we're thinking about this piece of the learner, is varied repetition. So presenting a skill in many different ways, with different people, in different situations, is really important to encourage that generalization. So all of these things that we know promoted a trend towards functional sight word-based approaches to reading, which have definitely shown to work with our learners, but they are limited. It ignores other components of reading like comprehension, fluency, decoding. So we've kind of taken what we know and what people have been doing in teaching learners with Down syndrome how to read and added another, I am not going to get this. There we go. Another component. So we're looking at all 5 components of a comprehensive reading instruction, which in 2000, the US National Reading Panel published recommendations for evidence-based comprehensive reading instruction, incorporating all 5 components of reading into instruction. However, it did exclude students with an IQ below 70. So we didn't know, does this work for our learners or does it not? However, in the last decade, new research has come out supporting the use of these comprehensive systematic approaches to reading instruction for individuals with intellectual disabilities. So our reading program includes all 5 components, as well as the 6th component, high meaning sight word acquisition. So what is that? It's just kind of a visual, because we love visuals, of how all of the things, all of those components kind of work together. And in our program, we have the high meaning sight words at the base, or in the middle of our reading instruction, so we start there. So I'll just clarify now, before we move on, is high meaning sight words, you guys are probably used to the term high frequency or high or just plain sight words, which would be all those words that are commonly occurring in early reading. So the and, house, dog, those kinds of things. High meaning sight words we refer to as the words that are really meaningful and have personal interest for the student. So when we start reading instruction, we will always start with things that they know well and that are motivating to them. So it's often family names, characters from their favorite books or shows, toys that they love, food sometimes is a big motivator and something that they want to learn about. So just keep that piece in mind as we move forward. So we kind of think of it as like a middle out approach, whereas like whole language is that like, hey, let's take this big chunk of language in the form of text and like pull out all the little pieces. Phonics, we're kind of taking the letter sounds and moving up and building and building and building until we get to that big chunk of language. We like to start with a word and then use that to build in both directions. Okay, so some of the guiding principles, just the things that we keep in mind anytime we're planning, is that success provides incentive and motivation. So whenever we're planning our lessons, what are we going to do to make this learner feel successful from the start? It might mean just starting with something that we know that they know really well and easing them into the harder stuff or the new things that they're going to learn. And motivation, definitely using their interests and some other things that we'll also talk about. Errorless learning is the idea of when we're first supporting students to learn new skills, we want to make it errorless. So we're modeling, we're giving them support to get the right answer, and then we're fading those things until they can do it on their own. Task analysis. This is a big part that we've really focused on lately, and that's the idea that we can break down a bigger skill that our students are not yet able to do into very small pieces, and one, build them all together to get to the final stage, but also be able to recognize their accomplishments along the way, because sometimes it's a long step between knowing your letter sounds and reading a word, right? So if we know in September that our student cannot read 3-letter words, and then we assess them later in June and they still can't read 3-letter words, we don't have very much information, and we don't feel very good about their learning. They probably don't either. But if we really think about all the different steps, we can assess them in September, look at them again a few months later, a few weeks later, sorry guys, and realize that they have learned, oh, that words start with a beginning sound, or they're able to put a certain sound on a word to make the beginning sound. And that's a lot more encouraging than not having made any progress or seemingly not made progress. So that's kind of our idea there. Sorry, I got ahead of my slide. There we go. And then instructional scaffolding, so again, building on those skills, modeling, I do it, we do it together, you do it on your own. And we found that the we do it part often lasts a lot longer than you might suspect with typically developing students. They might only need a couple of trials of doing it with you before they're ready to tackle it on their own, whereas our learners might need a little bit more time or a lot more time at that stage, kind of really doing it with you before they're able to do it on their own. And then that varied repetition that I talked about, providing multiple opportunities and contexts for students to practice the skill. And also review kind of ties in there as well. And always fun is at the root of our sessions, our lessons. And if you just want to keep an eye out for some of these things as we're going through the videos and the slides, I'll also try and point them out to you as well. All right, so this high-meaning sight word acquisition. So again, we use this as an avenue to initial reading success. So students not only learn to read words, but improve engagement, concepts of print, and oral language. And these words would be names of family and friends, favorite events or activities, characters, places, or action words from a preferred book, movie, or TV show, or anything really that your student is highly motivated for or by. The first student that I had, or one of the first students that I had, Pat told me, well, you're going to have this little guy, and he really loves Dog the Bounty Hunter. I was like, what is that? So I PVR'd it, and I had to start watching it, unfortunately. So I learned enough to start teaching him some words that had to do with the show, and he was really excited, and those words became books, and it was just a really great experience for him. I could have done without that show, but so these words, having these words helps them to be successful and engaged right from the start. Teaching high-meaning sight words helps students immediately understand that print carries meaning, so they have the meaning already. Now we're adding the print and connecting those to that idea or that concept. Having these foundation of sight words allows participation in all components of reading. So as soon as they know that this word mom is a thing, when I look at this, it says mom, we can start talking about the beginning letter. We can start using it in a sentence. We can read that sentence over and over and develop fluency. So all of those components are enhanced by having an initial starting point. So some of the strengths and challenges that go along with this approach, of course, we're using their visual memory and ability to recognize things visually. Students are motivated by their own interests. They tend to habituate the process, so it becomes routine for them. We don't have to think about the how we're learning, but instead we can focus on the what, and it's hands-on. Some of the challenges we do come across are this generalization. So yes, I know dog in the session, but can I read it in a different book? Can I read it on a sign? Can I read it in the classroom, even in my same book? So having that transfer between different situations, different people, and different methods of seeing the information is really important. We tend to get kids, once they do make that connection between their sight words and, oh, there's a letter that I know and it makes this sound, that they shift to relying on the first letter to recognize the word. So if you're giving them 4 words to learn and 2 of them start with S, they'll kind of just guess either one because they're really hyper-focused on that first letter. And that could only last for a little while because it's something that it's just new to them. They're just learning that, oh, these letters have sounds and these ones are the same, and that can pass, but it is something that you may need to address. I kind of depending on the student, again, remembering that everyone's individual, may choose to not present that kind of in the beginning, so not to have words that start with the same letter, so we are focusing on the full. But if they're maybe more advanced with their letter sounds, and they can maybe go to the second letter and start putting that strength now to use to figure out the word, then I may do that on purpose. Include 2 words that start with the same letter. So just a matter of assessing the situation in that individual student. Sometimes they get bored with the routine, and we need to mix it up a little bit. I have a whole bucket of things that we use to mix it up over there that you're welcome to take a look at. Andrea maybe can just hold up a few of them. So there's a pointer in case they don't want to just like hand you the word. There's a microphone to say the words into. There is a magnetic wand, so you can put paper clips on the words and then use the wand to pick up the word that you're asking them for. Sorry, Andrea. She's like, what do you want me to do today? I said, I don't know, I'll just like throw it out there whenever. And the fly swatter for the game that we talked about, writing the words on little fly cards and hitting it when you say it. So yeah, one way to kind of break up the routine a little bit by still keeping it predictable is to introduce some different activities. The puppet is such a huge part. I don't think I go a day without eating words with that puppet. But yeah. Okay, so the method that we use to introduce high-meaning sight words is based on Patricia Olwyn's work. It's 3 stages: match, select, and name. The first stage is matching, so it's kind of the simplest response. It's getting the kids introduced to these words that they're going to be learning. Words are commonly taught in groups of 4, and although students are just beginning with this process, may need to start with just 2 words, and that would be, again, up to you in deciding with your individual learner what they can handle, or try 4 if that's not going so well, scale it back. So after going through each step of this strategy, I'll show a video of the students demonstrating the step. So you can also see here if you can pick out some of the guiding principles mentioned earlier. So basically what we do is we have a grid. Andrew will hold it up with 4 words on it. Sorry. This one would be for a very, very beginning learner. It has some pictures on it as well. I find that usually only needs to be done for a couple of times with these words, and then we can take away the pictures just to get the idea that this is what we're doing. We're matching the same thing to something that is the same. So there will be another grid as well that has just the words, no pictures. And so all you do is hold up the word, say, what's on there? Play. Bubbles. Say bubbles, this is bubbles, something very short and simple. Don't provide too much language. You want them to really focus on the word you're saying. So I might say match bubbles, give them the card, and they need to find it on a grid with 4 of the words and match it to it. So we do that with all the rest of the words, and then take them off again, do it again, take them off again, do it again. That said, you may not get through 3 rounds of this. You may need to just stick with 1 time as they're learning this process and getting used to the routine, and then build in a little bit more, making it up to the ideal 3 times before moving on. And we want to keep it fast, not like, oh, this is the word bubbles. It starts with B. You know, have you played with bubbles? None of that, just bubbles, match, and it goes really quickly. I think actually this morning you saw Ethan doing it, right? Just this says bubbles, match kind of idea. So we have used videos like Ethan's in the past, and we've got some feedback that, oh, that looks really great, but do all students start out that, attentive and proficient at this skill? So we decided to put in a few examples of some maybe more beginner matchers. So this first one is L.
All right, good. There's our schedule, and there's our book. So let's quickly learn these words, and then we'll look at them in your book. Okay, here, are you ready? Dora.
Dora.
Good. Where's Dora? Good job. Match. Perfect. Can I help you get it on there? Good. Got it. Okay, here's the next word. Here's a new one. Can you show me this? I. Yeah. Put that on I. Where's I? Excellent. Okay, I've got it. Good work. Okay, next one. Swimming. Yeah. Can you put that on swimming? Good job. All right, keep it there. And the last word, like. Nice job. Okay, I got them. Now watch what I'm going to do. Mix them up. Stir it up, stir it up.
All right, so that was Ella. That actually looks pretty good for a beginner. She was able to go through the routine and get the job done. Yes?
I noticed that in both videos, sign was used as well as the verbal. Is that, did the children have hearing deficits, or is that a way of also reinforcing?
Exactly. It's a way of also reinforcing. So definitely the hearing deficits could be present, as we know that it's quite common. But we do introduce words along with sign. It just gives additional visual support that, again, if they're not, this comes into the errorless learning too. So if they're not finding, or if they're not reading the word bubbles, I might do the sign for bubbles, and they're still experiencing success, getting an extra kind of avenue for communication, and also getting closer to that independent stage of being able to read. Yes? We're not super picky about what signs we use. Tend to use, if we were building sentences, it would be more like exact signed English. I think that's the right term. Hello? Yeah? Good. But just as far as signs, not all signs are even available in both ways. So I think I tend to use the exact signed English more often for even just choosing the signs. But some of the kids even come with it. Some of the kids have already started with baby signing time. And what would that be, Liv? Do you know what signs those are? Sorry to put you on the spot. On ASL, yeah. And they're not that different. Basically, it's just a way for the student to communicate. And it's a lot like the gestures that we know that they are really great at using too. All right, so you might have noticed that she's already learned the process. She seems quite comfortable. What else did you notice about Ella in this video? Were you using any of the guiding principles that I outlined earlier? Exactly. Yeah, it's. I think her book is an I like book, so it's Dora and swimming, and I think like is on there too. So using her interests. Anything else? Yeah. Exactly. So using the first then, you can see already she wants to go to the book, but we just need to do this first, and she was okay with that. Yeah, great. Anyone else? Quick. Yeah, it was quite quick. I was criticized Eleanor in this one. She's using a little bit too much language, but it might be because she's already got the process down a little bit. She can use a little bit more. And also being fun, right? Like mix it up, stir it up, throw this away. Like just keeping it light and fun. So this is Brody in the second video. He's matching all the words. He's just going to go through one round, but he's going to do it 2 more times after that. He's really good with this process. He's fine with sitting there and going through it 3 times, so he'll do it all. Yeah, like I said, if you do need to just start with 1 round of matching, that's okay.
Fire truck. Dirty.
And he's signing the words as well.
Rides. Girl. Good work.
He's really got it down. He is so cute.
When you do this in additional times, do you have different, or the words in different places? So if the next session he came in, would fire truck be in a different grid of 4, or is it always the same?
Yeah, I just use the same grid. Yeah, I haven't really found it to be too, like, that they're memorizing the places for them, but you could try it if you think that that's an issue, you could. you'll see in the next stage when he's reading the words, I do tend to mix them up a little bit more for that reason, but I think with the grid, it's just a matter of finding it and matching it. It's okay. Yeah.
Do you encourage them to say the word after they see it?
Yes, I would encourage that. So he was saying it and also giving it a sign as well. And if they can't, then that's okay. Just do that pause and give them a few minutes and see if they'll provide you the word. If it's later on and they've already learned these words for a while and you're ready to kind of like put a little more pressure on, I guess, you could be like, oh, you say fire truck, and then just see if that's okay with them. Yeah.
Do you do this in just one-on-one or small groups?
Well, I only work with kids one-to-one, but we have had kids in like our summer camp, or Andrea teaches the adult class. I don't know how much of this they're doing. Do you ever do it with more than one?
If some of the students do need this in the adult class, I'll do it one-on-one with them. Because they'll have different words that they're working on.
Yeah.
But Danielle, like you do mix up the grid like Eleanor did in the first one, like so the grid isn't gonna look, you're not gonna match the word in the same place all the time.
Well, the grid stays the same. Yeah. Like we don't change the words. Oh, I don't give them the word at the same time every time. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So the stationary grid, the one that's on the paper, will be the same every time. But I might give them fire truck the first time. I might give him bubbles first the next time. Is that what you meant, Pat? Oh.
The placement of the words on the grid, because sometimes you mix up the grid so you have just the next.
Yeah. Yes.
I noticed in the first video, I'm not sure what the conditions, but they were pointing to the word.
Yes. So that.
He's asking about shop with that.
Exactly.
Is that solved at some point?
Yes, that would be the errorless learning we were talking about. So she's not quite matching her words accurately every time. So Eleanor is giving her just a minute to see if she's going in the right place, and if not, then she quickly kind of leads her to the right answer. So the next step is selecting. So this is really a great thing for kids with, for their use of their receptive strength, because all they need to do is hear the word and then be able to pick it up instead of actually just reading it. So this step is you put the 4 cards down on the desk in random order. Ask the student to pick up a certain word and give it to you. So there's gesture, or like I said, we might use the puppet to ask them to feed it to the puppet. And then continue asking for each word, returning the words to the table, so there's always 3 to choose from. So again, this can be adapted. If you think that your student needs to start with a place of just 2 words on the desk to choose from, that's okay. And then kind of build it up. I find that 4 are often hard to focus on for most kids. So having just 3 in a line and then just replacing them out as you're asking them to give it to you. And then here's that errorless learning piece. If they have difficulty, guide his hand to find or point to the correct word. And then I'm sure Eleanor put this part in. She's like, close your eyes while you mix up the cards. You don't have to make them close your eyes, but just the idea of doing something fun, singing a little song, mix it up. I can always tell my students from a different student because or from a different teacher's students, because they all have a different way of like doing this part. So that's up to you. Keep it fun. And then again, repeat this process 3 times if you can. Again, at first, if you just need to go through it 1 time to get them used to the routine, you can do that. Oh, it's way better using the arrows. Thank you. All right, so we have 2 more videos. The same little girl, Ella, with her door or her I like words. She's going to begin by selecting the requested word from a choice of 2 words. So here's that example of a more beginner learner here. She's using errorless learning to guide Ella to choose the word she asked for. And then as she learns the words or is more comfortable with them, she'll start to fade that prompt and let her select them on her own. So unfortunately, we only get 45 minutes a week with each student, but we always provide the materials for practice at home or at school. So it really depends how much time other people are working on it as to the progress. And we really, ideally, it would be great if people could do this once a day, at least. And it's super quick once they get used to the routine. I mean, it really only takes 5 minutes. So even if you did it once in the morning, once in the afternoon, they're getting that much more practice. Yeah, so it's really ideal to do it as much as possible. But if they were just coming to us, they would only have it once a week.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
So I noticed that within her words, so there was Dora, but then there were high frequency words like I, which aren't sort of. Do you have like a list of how you sort of introduce those?
The high frequency?
The high frequency that aren't meaningful within those? Or?
Yeah, no, and actually that's kind of the beauty of it. They're learning the high frequency words in a context of something that's meaningful to them. So whatever words are necessary to make those high meaning words useful in sentences in books will be the ones that they'll work on. Yeah, and often it is I like, I see, this is. Are we good? Okay. Okay, so here's Ella selecting.
Good. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do. Bye-bye, grid. I'm going to mix them up. Can you close your eyes? Close your eyes, no peeking. Can you go like this? Close your eyes. Good job. Mix, mix, mix. Okay. I've got 2 words in front of you. Can I have the word Dora? Oh, thank you. All right, now, hold on, look at both. We've got 2. Can I have the word I? Yeah, good work, Ella. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 more. Hold on, look at both of them. Can I have swimming? Swimming? I don't want Dora, I want swimming. Do you see swimming? Yeah. Good job, thank you. Okay, let's put your 2. Now look, I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 words. Ella, can I have... Hold on 1 second. Come over here, we're almost done, and then we can look at those books, okay? Did you want to see the iPad? Or the books? Oh, yeah, take that one out. There we go. Oh, the kittens. Good job. Okay, last one, and then we'll take a break, I promise. Can you give me Dora? Dora? This guy? Oh no, did your glasses come off? Here, let me help you. There we go. Can I have Dora? Oh, thank you. You have it. Yeah, put it in your hand. Perfect. Dora. Good. Oh, that's a kitten. Are you ready to look? Okay, let me just...
So Eleanor just tried to get her to finish out the task there by selecting that last word, but she was clearly done with this activity. So they'll move on to something else, and yeah, that's okay, because she's not going to get the learning if she's not engaged anymore. So this little guy, he's been learning words with this method for some time. He's working on 6 words at a time, and really I just am using it to introduce the words for a book that he wants to read, and we'll probably only practice them a couple of times, and it'll be enough for him to recognize them in the context of the book, and also in isolation. So we're making it more interesting. I just had a little hammer for him to hit the words with before this session, and it was him that was playing it and said, oh, it's whack-a-mole. It must have been at a fair sometime. So of course I made the little moles to go with it to make it even more fun for me.
And over here.
Spring.
This one.
Good work. Kitchen. Cleaned. Good job. Bedrooms. Awesome. Living room. Bedrooms. Bathroom. Spring. Cleaned.
We will do this thing.
We're going to do it again. Kitchen. Living room. Spring. Oh, spring?
Oh, no. There.
Spring. Good job. And bathrooms.
So he's clearly okay with this. He loves this activity, and he's good with doing it a few times. I kind of lost track of how many times I'd done each word, but it's fine. He knows it. He's ready to move on.
Good. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do.
Okay. And then the final stage is reading. So this is just saying or signing the word in response to the written word. It's reading, right? They're seeing the words and they're telling you what it says. So if they're confident and ready, you can show them the word and ask them to name the word on the card. If they're nonverbal, have limited language, you can teach the signs or provide pictures to choose from to show that they're reading that word. Sometimes they prefer to select the cards they read. So like you could put them on the table and they could pick one up and read it rather than having you kind of in charge of the activity. And then always give them that wait time to read the word and provide the support if they're having some trouble. And then if they're not quite ready to read the words, you can just have them say or sign the word after you. So you could say bubbles and they would just copy your sign or say the word after you until they're ready to kind of do it more independently. So just providing those supports and layering them until they're ready to be more independent with the activity. So here's the videos. There you go. So the first one is also concentrating on the idea of generalization. So instead of reading them off of her cards, I put them on the board, so she's reading them that way.
What's this one? Can you point?
Bad.
Friend, good job. What's this one?
Anna.
Oh, that's Tiana, you're right. What's this one? Tiana.
Anna.
Yourself. Good work. I see your sign. What's that one?
Go.
Teacher. Good job.
Sarah.
Friend.
Bye.
And what's that one?
Anna.
Tiana.
Super cute. But yeah, her signs are helping me because yourself didn't really sound like yourself, but she did the sign, and so I knew that she was reading that correctly. This little guy uses a lot of sign to read his words.
Alta. Jake.
Ghosts.
A beat. Hissy.
Oh, do your sign.
Hussy.
Hanging.
Die.
Light.
Others.
Faces. Spiders. And smiley. Great job.
And again, we would go through all the words again 2 more times. And this little guy did not have much language at the time. He talks like crazy now, but he's using pictures to show me that he's reading the word that I have on the card.
Go. Good job. Nice work. Yay! Good job, Isaac. One more. What's this one? Good work, Isaac.
All right, so this is high meaning to him because he loved the song Slippery Fish. So we put these words into a book as well that he could read. He does use sign. Yeah, we kind of did a combination of both. His signs were also not super accurate at the time. So I kind of wanted to have both ways of having him express what he knew. And this was also part of a fun activity that we did, while singing the song too, so it worked. But yeah, so if a student didn't use sign, You could do it with pictures like this.
Sorry, if you have a student who isn't using signs,
Uh-huh.
but is verbal, then as you're progressing, like these students are quite young, but if you
Yeah.
have students who's grade 6, grade 7, are you then augmented communication is sort of the only?
Yeah, if for responding to this stage kind of idea, or just, yeah, so if they have their own, sorry.
Yeah, just for communicating.
Yeah, if they have their own augmentative communication device, you can make sure that these words that they're learning are in there, and they can choose them from their device that way. But you can still, even that, they wouldn't be these kind of cutesy pictures, but you could give them cards with pictures so that they can learn it. And you can just teach the signs as you're in the first stage of matching, so that they at least have that little bit to participate in this, and that will help them going forward as well to be able to use those words in other contexts.
So say like the ability to read is not dependent on the method of communication.
No, because so much of what we read is in our head, right? This is more really just my assessing if he can read these words and if I'm ready to move on, because he probably read them in his head without saying them. So to keep that in mind, it's definitely trickier, and I definitely have some kids where I'm like, I don't know, what to do here. Like, he's not saying anything, and he's ready to move past the single word reading. So then how do I assess sentences and whole books? Same idea, having a sentence on a strip with a picture that he could match it to works for that. But yeah, it definitely gets more complicated as they become more proficient readers when they're nonverbal. But it's, again, just individual basis, using their strength, what do they have to kind of tackle this with. Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah.
Sorry, my question may be several slides before now, but it just occurred to me. Do you do like some phonological teaching of the alphabet before all of this?
This would be number one thing, but letter sounds would almost hand in hand. Like, I would start this initial learning task, but even like within a month, start introducing some letter sounds, and that's this afternoon's presentation. No, that's okay. You didn't know, it's all good. But yeah, because they can be useful in starting to identify these words for sure. Okay. All right, so just a little recap of the 3 stages, and also the engagement piece that is a beneficial or a benefit of this process. So some of the things that come from each stage. I'm going to let you guys read it because a lot of it is repetitive, and I want to make sure we hit everything. So again, some of those things that we need to remember: providing opportunities for generalization. So you could use different fonts, ask them to read or do this with different people or in different places. And then consider all the modalities. So we've got a few examples of that here. The little girl in the corner is searching for her words in a bucket of sand, and then so she's at the naming stage. She's going to pull it out and read it to me. The little girl in the other corner down below, she's jumping on the words that I say. So that's essentially the selecting stage there. So I'm saying a word and she's just jumping on it instead of handing it to me. And this little guy is all about the interests. He usually would come into my office with a toy of some sort, and it would be my job to figure out how we're going to make this work in the reading activity. So he came in with that truck. He happened to be learning color words, so I just put the words down and put little colored beads on each one. And he had to drive his car over, pick up the bead of the color that I asked for, and then dump it off the desk. So it was a fun cleanup day, but it worked to have him engaged in the activity. Okay, so after we've taught the words, we want to give that reinforcement and review through motivating games. So any games you can think of that will use their words and have them reading their words or selecting their words to review them are fair game. So this is a little video of Connor bowling for his words.
Go! Whoa! Oh, you got 4 pins. Let's see, what did you get? Owen. And
Mama.
Mama. What's this one?
No.
Who's that?
No.
Connor. And
Mama. Papa.
Papa. Good job.
Okay, so this game could be, he was reading his words, but it could also be used for selecting his words. You could space them out and say, hit the one that says mama.
Go.
This other video here, the first one, shows a game that was invented by him. So there's a game that we play called letter hockey that we had probably just done, and he still wanted to use the pucks and the hockey stick. So he was like, I'll just do this. And it totally worked for the purpose that it was meant for. So we did that.
Da. T. Ba. Apples.
So really inventive and completely enjoyable. And then the last one is a little game of hunting for words with his flashlight.
Okay, buddy. Shine your light on Owen. Can you find Owen and put your flashlight on it? Where's Owen? Nice work. Where's Mama? Yeah. Where's Connor? Great work. Can you find Papa? Awesome. And family. Way to go. Can you find Mama? And Connor? And Papa? Where's Papa? Show me again. That was so quick. Where's Papa? Ah, my eyes. Where's Papa? No, not in your eyes. Put it on Papa. Connor, where's Papa?
So yeah, that didn't last too long, but it was useful for the time that it lasted. Yeah, it's super cute. He did shine them in my eyes right after that. It's super awesome, but so just really the sky's the limit with the games that you can play. There's use the interests, get creative, it's kind of fun. And then like you saw with Jonathan with the whack-a-moles, he was just learning those words quickly to be able to read a book that he wanted to read. So that was his purpose. It wasn't, you know, he already had a lot of ability in reading. It was just a few key vocabularies that he needed, vocabulary words he wanted to learn. And then, like we already talked about, learning those high frequency words in context with their high meaning words is really useful. Yes. Does someone have a question over? Oh no, Stephanie was fixing her hair. Okay. All right. So again, preloading vocabulary, introducing the high frequency words along with the high meaning words. And then making your own books to showcase these words and practice them. So again, we're going to use our interest in the books. So you saw a little example with Ella in her I Like book, you know, Dora and swimming and some other things. Use really simple language at first and then just gradually increase difficulty. So you might find one week you're doing I like Dora, and then, well, it's not a good example, but I like swimming, and you could be like, I like swimming fast, or I like blue bubbles. It doesn't make sense either, but you get my point. So you can add the words and then continue to reinforce and review the words they've already learned. Repetitive patterned texts, as you see with any of your early readers, right? Everyone starts with those I see or I like books that are ready-made. Same kind of idea, just repeating the pattern throughout the book. Yes?
Have you found it like a reading series that's building on, building on skills? Have you found one that you prefer over
Other ones?
any other ones?
Not really. Do you get Andrew or Stephanie? You guys?
I have 4 of my reading notes that I still have, but
Yeah.
that's not the only thing I use. But I'm just wondering if something is more a little bit up to date.
Yeah, I think when we get more into the phonics, like we've used like Bob books, or we actually subscribe to Reading A to Z, and it's just, yeah, more than anything convenient because we can then send a book home with the students to continue to practice. And they have, their early levels are really repetitive and they're exactly what you need at this stage. Again, you don't always find the interests like Dog the Bounty Hunter that are going to work for your student, but when they do, you can definitely use pre-read books as well.
I find Reading A to Z is good because there's a large amount of interest in those levels.
Yeah, they are quite varied. You're right, for sure. Yeah, they're worth trying out. Yeah, I wouldn't use social stories for reading instruction unless you were able to make them really simple, but often they need to be a little bit more complex to get, kind of the idea across. But that said, like some kinds of things that are really useful socially can be presented in these books too. Yeah. All right, so moving on, like repeating high meaning sight words in various books. So the I Like book has Dora and swimming in it, and the next book might say instead of I like Dora, it says Dora is swimming, or Dora is jumping, or Dora is whatever. So we're using words they've already learned, introducing some new words through the match select name strategy, and then continuing to reinforce and review the words going forward. You can use any pictures, Google Images. You'll see if you want to come back to the table later, there's examples of books that I've made for kids who really like certain characters. So I just screenshot the video on YouTube and kind of do a sequential progression throughout the book of what's happened in that video, and that could be like a little motivating thing at the end. We'll read our book and then we'll watch the video. So that's really a popular thing for kids. It takes a lot more time, but sometimes it's necessary. We use Word or Publisher or PowerPoint even to make the books, and there are some good apps like Pictello and Special Stories that you can make on the iPad, and then they can be printed as well, so you can have the hard copy book. Okay, so here's a little guy reading a book with his sight words in context.
Okay, ready your rules. Pointing. Nice and loud.
No.
Start.
No.
Good job. That was nice and loud this time. And you pointed to your words. Great job. And I feel like you were even having some fun. I know, it's hard to turn these pages. I'll start you. And you turned your own pages.
I
Remember, same word. Saw. Great job. Pointing, reading, turning your own pages. Awesome. That's right. You got it.
I saw
a lady? Look at, what's your word?
girl.
A girl. Good job.
Now. No.
Oh, nice and loud. I
saw me.
Nice job.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. So this little guy also had a little bit of motivation issue with reading, so I had a little checklist beside him that we gotta remember to turn our own pages, point to our own words, and read nice and loud. He's a little bit grumpy about reading, but that actually helped a little bit. And he's a little bit older, so this is a book about a movie that he saw. I think it was, I don't know, Jurassic Park maybe? Jumanji, yeah.
Again, back, I understand and appreciate the errorless learning.
Yeah.
But do you think, like when he said have coffee there, would you correct his pronunciation or no?
No, because I just don't, Yeah, he's not capable of saying that word properly.
Why wouldn't you
Why would- Model it back? Yeah, I probably should have. Yeah. No, for sure. No, you're right. Yeah, no, there's not. Yeah, I think I was kind of excited for him to try it, so I just kind of left it alone. But yeah, otherwise you could definitely say it again or read the whole sentence again so he hears it and he doesn't feel like you're just correcting him, maybe? Yeah. Okay, these are just some examples of what some personal books might look like. Very patterned, the words that he was learning. That's the guy with the bowling and the flashlight. It's also a great way to start working on questions too, right? Who do you see? And then he can answer, I see mama. Another one with characters that they love. So this one was actually a combination of words that they learned. They did a bunch of toys like bubbles and music and train, and then also some food words. So we were kind of putting them all together to practice both. Then they can also be used to teach some concepts too, like this is all about up and down. Some things that are important to learn that might not have yet, and also just using those highly motivating characters. And this is actually another combination. So they learned animal words like cat, dog, and goat, and they learned some vehicle words, and then we put them together in this book to keep practicing. Okay, and then another thing we really love to do to practice words is make activities we call them read and do activities. So they would read something and then act it out or carry out the task in some way. So start with what they know and then build further comprehension and vocabulary through these types of activities. Again, use your interests. I like this idea of looking at their favorite toys under a different lens. Like, how can I use this truck to teach blank? Like, what are we working on? What are the things they love? How can we make that into a learning task or a learning activity? And then these activities are great for demonstrating that print carries meaning. Like, there's a reason for this. We're not just reading these words for the fun of it. We want to get meaning from it. We want to be able to do things with it. Okay, here's an example of, Connor's really featured today. He's doing a read and do activity called I Pick Up. So he learned all the words for the toys that are in the bucket, and then I dumped them on the ground, and then I showed him a sentence that said, pick up car, pick up ball.
I pick up my...
No.
Yeah, can you put it in the box? You get it. What does the book say? Pick up your ball. Good job, buddy. Put it in. What's next? I pick up my
No.
book. Good work. There it is. Clean up. What's this one? I pick up my...
No.
Oh, look, buddy. What is he picking up? Not teddy bear. Look. It says shh. Shoes. That's right. Put shoes in. 2 shoes. What's this one?
No.
I pick up my...
No.
This one says teddy bear. That's right. You can put that in. And what's this page?
No.
I pick up my...
No.
hat. Can you find the hat?
Uh-oh.
Can you find the hat, Connor? I pick up my hat. Yeah. Oh, you put it on your head. You're funny. Can you clean it up?
No.
Okay, let's turn the page. I pick up my
No.
cars. That's right. And what's this one?
No.
I pick up my
No.
blanket.
So I'm doing the signs with him
My
as well.
room is
There's a lot of
all-
errorless learning happening here.
All done? Yeah, all clean.
He's like, done.
Good job.
So you could do this with any toys. This one happened to be a Reading A to Z book called I Pick Up, but you could make your own book with any toys that they love. And then like some ready-made toys are great for this. Melissa and Doug we really like a lot, but you can do any repetitive text like get the green fish if you're playing with the fishing set, or making a pizza, put on mushrooms, put on pineapple, whatever. Some people don't do that. Yeah, and these things can continue to grow and add more vocabulary as well. Start with just a few maybe food items that you're putting on the pizza, and then the next time teach 4 more and start putting those on your pizza. Anything like that. So often the same activity can be used for many different themes. So a great way to use the student's interest to introduce a lot of new vocabulary. So one little guy that I work with, Isaac, with the ocean animals, he loves animals. So we did Old MacDonald first, and we used the same board to put on all the farm animals, and then we did it with slippery fish. Yeah, he learned so many animal names that way, and then kind of extended them into new books. I think you'll see there's animals wearing glasses because he did not like to wear his glasses. So we did that, kind of a social story in that way, right? You know, cat wears glasses, dog wears glasses, but he's reading his words and some new vocabulary as well. And the next video is really cute. It's a variation on the same animal theme. It's Sleeping Bunnies. He really loves that song, but it's just bunnies sleeping. So we made other animals do other things. So we brought in some verbs that way as well. What's on this page? What is that, Isaac? A duck. Oh, ready to sing? What's first? Look, Isaac. Let's read the words. You can do it. Look it. Sleeping ducks. Sleeping ducks. What does that say? Look. Shh, 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 shh. 1, 2, 3. Wake up, sleeping ducks. Wake up, sleeping ducks. Swim, swim, swim. Your turn. Swim, swim, swim. Good work. Who's on the next page? What is that? Are they sleeping birds? I'm going to stop that there. This goes on to do other animals and other verbs. But he's not really doing a lot of reading on his own, but he is demonstrating a lot of understanding of meaning and like, what's the point of this whole reading thing? Oh, I get it. Like, it has meaning and we can do these things and it can be fun. So all really important and meaningful, valuable things. Just a few examples of things you could do with read and do. So making cookies, doing a picnic, going shopping with a shopping cart and getting like the food that are your high meaning sight words. Lots of ideas. Really, the sky's the limit there. And then reading together is also really important at this stage. So doing that shared reading. A lot of people have probably already heard about dialogic reading. It's really just some prompts to help you to read more varied with students, and we'll go through that quickly after this. You can do sentence and picture matches as they get a little more advanced and are able to read more sentences. Adding sentence strips to existing books, we'll get to that too. Following directions like the I Pick Up or anything else that is kind of that getting a job done type thing. And all of these things are great for print awareness. Okay, so some of the reasons for reading together. These are all the things you can do, you can address when reading to and with your student. So much like the personal books, patterned text helps students learn that language is predictable. When reading pattern text, pause at the end of the line and see if your student can supply the predictable word, either by memory or from repeated readings, or by using the picture clues or some of the words they've learned through their high meaning sight word approach. When you come across words they've learned that way, pause and see if they can supply the word. If they don't, say something like, this is a word from your family book. This is mama. So making that connection that that word exists outside of just that one book that they learned it in. So as I mentioned before, read and do activities including songs and stories with props or actions can help them understand the meaning. These types of reading materials are great for slowing down and explicitly teaching how to track print, since many times the sentences will stand on their own and you'll have to be stopping to allow the student to carry out the action. And it's also a great time to include their high meaning sight words in a context or a different context. Simply talking about the pictures on each page and emphasizing the beginning sounds is a great way to start reading alphabet books. As they become more familiar, you can do, with the letters and sounds, you can do like I Spy games. And these are all things that you would do with typically developing children too. You just need to remember some of those guiding principles and some of the strengths and challenges that you might need to consider when doing it with your student with Down syndrome. Okay, so what does shared reading look like? I think we all do, probably for teachers, you're doing this in your classroom already. It's making observations, it's asking questions, forming opinions, interacting with the text some way. But what we really want to know is how do we support students with special needs? So one, choosing the right books. So what do they include? The right books. Interests. So we want to use books that include their interests. We want to modify the process a little bit, and we'll talk more about that. One of those ways is to use visual supports, so maybe a question or visuals of the question words. So if you just want to talk about who and what, it might have the word who with a person and some animals. You've probably seen these already just from Boardmaker and things like that you can get pretty easily. But really just focus on a couple of those words at a time. Likely just one for a while, and then bring in a new one. I mentioned briefly the story vocabulary board, so having some of the vocabulary that's in the story you're reading together available for them to access and point to and talk about. There's some examples of that over at the table, using their AAC device, and using props like those Velcro animals to put on, or real things like the I Pick Up game. So we don't want to use this time of shared reading, I think we know this too, to test the student. Like, what letter is that? What word is this? You know, what sound does that make? It's really just a shared experience to kind of explore together and enjoy books. Those are the examples I was talking about. Some props. That little girl in the middle, she's so cute. She likes a show called PJ Masks, which I didn't know existed. So we just made masks, and her sentences were, I am night ninja. So she had to pick up the mask and then put it on to show that she was the night ninja. Whatever. Some puppets, or your own AAC device. Okay, so this is dialogic reading sequence. If you haven't heard of this yet, I'm going to just go through this quickly. There is so much information about dialogic reading. Really, it's just two acronyms to help you to remember some things when you're reading with a student. PEER stands for prompt them. So as you're reading, not the first time, but the second or third or 50th time you've read the same book, prompt the student to say something about the book or the page. Evaluate their response. Offer praise or an alternative and encourage them here. So sometimes evaluating is not even out loud. It's just in your own mind. You're saying, oh, they said balloon, so they know what that word is. Let me give them some more language to describe it. Or they don't know balloon. let me give them that language to describe it. And the E stands for expand. So that would be kind of that idea of giving them different language or more language to talk about the picture or the sentence that they've just heard. And then R, encourage some repetition, either yourself repeat the expansion, what you've kind of come away with from your first prompt, or encourage them to repeat it. And try this. I always find the R a little bit less natural than the rest, so try and make it not like that testing, like now you say it, but encourage it in some other way to just feel more natural. So there's an example, oh, what do you see, or what does the girl have? They say balloon, you can say, you're right, it's a yellow balloon. Simple as that. And then you could say, you're right, it's a balloon, great job, or it's a big yellow balloon, depending on your individual student, how much more language they could handle there. And then the prompts, this is the acronym to help us to remember to prompt our students in different ways. And they're not going to be able to handle all of these prompts from day one or from their very beginning reading experiences. I find like the open-ended ones are easier, and the completion prompts if you're reading really repetitive text. So completion is just filling in that last word. Brown bear, what do you? We all know that word. And then the open-ended would be like talking about a picture. It's often about the picture and what do you see in the picture, what's the frog doing, that kind of idea. And then later on, you'll move into more recall questions that you would ask before reading the book for a second or third or 50th time. WH questions, we want to introduce them one at a time, really get familiar with like, what does a who question look like, or what kind of answers do I need to provide for that before you start asking more questions. And then distancing are really great in the classroom because you're familiar with what this student knows. You know their experiences to some degree. We always tell the parents that this is their time to shine because you know everything about your child and you can really encourage these questions. But those are the ones like, oh, it's a bird. We saw a bird in the backyard yesterday. You know, giving that connection. So that's really, you know, what reading's all about, is making some connections and understanding it further. I know I'm running out of time. 5 minutes. Always. Okay, so we're going to skip over this. This is getting you guys to think of some prompts that you could use, but you could do that. Sure. Yeah. So these are things we've talked about already, so I definitely don't need to go through them individually. Just ways to modify your reading together to incorporate some of the ideas about strengths and challenges. What that looks like. Those are the sentence to picture matching that we talked about. This is through an app, but you can just do it with cards and pictures. And again, adding, I think I mentioned this too, just adding sentences to existing books. If that book is not at the level that the student can access, you can make it more accessible. If they really love the hockey book, then you can give them their own sentences to go with it. And I'm sure that lots of teachers in here use the pocket chart to do predictable language as well. More print awareness examples. Sometimes it comes naturally, but occasionally you will have to explicitly teach that each of these things is a word. So like dots under the words or sorting type activities. And then letters. So big takeaways here. We want to focus on the sounds, not the names. So the sounds are what we need to read phonetically, which is our next step after we can't just learn every single word by sight and then expect to be able to read. So we need to learn to read phonetically eventually. So we want to know the sounds, and that's what's going to be most important for getting to that skill. Learning both names and sounds can sometimes be confusing. I found a lot of kids, especially if they come to us later, they've learned the names really well, but every time they see a C, they say C, and that doesn't help them read cat, right? You need to be able to say, look at that letter and say K. So if it's a problem, like I usually would say, this is C, it says K, 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 and do it like 10 times more with the sound than the one time I mentioned the letter name. And then remember to allow them to demonstrate their knowledge receptively. So they may not be able to make that sound, but they can select it from a selection of cards on the table, for example, or jump on it, or feed it to a puppet. Again, a lot of the the word activities that we talked about can be done with letters as well. Yeah.
What point do we start
that's a really great question. I would say, like, if I see a child once a week, I would probably start doing the letter sounds in the first month. Yeah, like just get a really, and not start connecting that yet, like to their words, but just at the same time. And we start with four letters, and I choose the letters that we start with because they can be made into words if you have those four, like P, F, S, and A, so we can do, 3 letters that way. So 3 consonants and a vowel. I used to do 5, but they don't fit on the grid, so I had to go down to 4. So I use the same process to select or to teach the sounds, that match, select, name process. So having letters on the grid, matching them, selecting them, and then saying the sound as the naming. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect, exactly, yeah. Any program like that your child is interested or motivated by will help this as well. Yeah, just kind of combining multiple approaches is totally fine, yeah. Okay, so same activities that are out there for teaching letter sounds to typically developing kids, just always keep in mind those guiding principles and the things we know about strengths and challenges. And again, like I said, all the sight word games that we've been playing can be used to teach these letter sounds. And because we know they love routine, they don't need to learn the process again. We can just start right away in learning letter sounds. Here's a little...
Look over here. The letter on the bus says... Good. Good. The letter on the bus says... All over Chloe's head. Oh no! Okay, what's next? You ready? The letter on the bus says... Good. The letter on the bus says... All over my head. Good. What's this one? Oh, you know this one. You're really good at this one. Here we go.
Okay, so she's doing a few things there. She's doing the predictable fill in the blanks completion prompt with a song. She's having she's modeling the sound and having Chloe copy it. She might, in the next few sessions, be able to say, oh, Chloe, give me the one that says and she can select the letter and then put it on the bus. So you can kind of modify it to the level that she's at the time.
Look over here.
Does anyone want to stay 3 minutes and see the last few videos? Okay, so this is letter hockey. This is one version of it. There's lots of them, or lots of ways you can use this. You saw Lucas doing it, just shooting the pucks from his word cards earlier. All right, can you do
N
W?
W
Good job. Can you do
C
and Nice job. Where's Z? Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to give you these other letters, and you can shoot them in whichever one you want, but you need to tell me. You need to tell me the sound.
There's 2 goalies.
Okay. Oh, you're going to use 2 today. You can decide which one to put it in?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me that sound.
S.
Just the sound. So this is one of those kids who learned the letter names really well.
Q.
I think that one's upside down. Let's flip it.
S, D, B. B.
Nice.
N.
Fish. Put the fish in the box.
The baby.
Jody, slippery fish.
Yeah.
Slippery fish. Slippery fish. Swimming in the water.
Slippery fish.
Like,
Slippery fish. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Hey! Ow! Close the box. Oh, nice work. What's our last one? What's that one? That.
all.
Good job. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Crash! All right. So these are just some examples of how you can show what you know about letter sounds. And it really, a lot of it is interchangeable with the words, so don't feel like we're missing out too much here. An idea or an example of varied repetition, all different activities to work on the letter sound ah, for example. When in doubt, positive reinforcement, praise, encouragement, preferred activities. Sing, do something physical like jump on the words, bowling, throw a beanbag, add a prop, a microphone, pointer, a flashlight. Do something, oh gosh, they love to put something inside of things or take things out of things, so do that. And share the work, take turns doing the tasks. And the last few are just resources and references, the end. Thank you. I was going to say, if you have questions, Andrea and I and Stephanie, if she's still here, will hang around the table. If you want to look at resources or ask questions, we can do that. I know some people are probably ready for lunch, so we can do it that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Danielle. That was incredible. Good job.